whole host of inspirational women and recognizing their leadership abilities and talent. But we are only halfway through because we have a jam-packed session all through the afternoon into the evening with a whole host of people with stories that are really, really interesting to hear, and hopefully some advice that goes a long way for the rest of us. Let's get started with our next panel. Our editorial director, Priya Sehgal, will be in conversation with Namita Bhandare. She is a columnist of Mind the Gap at Hindustan Times. Leher Kala, who is a columnist with the Indian Express and the founder of Hatke Films. And Anuradha Das Mathur, who is the dean and founder of Vedika Scholars Program for Women. And guess what they're discussing? Bringing up boys. Priyaji, over to you.
Thank you so much, Rishabh. We have a very hard act to follow because we are also at the fag end of the lunch. So I hope everybody is now happy and ready for some very interesting sound bites, something that will help you digest the lunch. But the topic is bringing up boys. We've already had a session on bringing up girls. But really, what I want to discuss with the panel today is that why should there be a difference? Can we have silence, please? Okay. So topic जो आज का है is bringing up girls. लेकिन जो मैं the point that I want to put up is why should there be a difference between boys and girls? In the sense, why are girls told कि जब रात को बाहर जा रहे हो be careful? Why are boys not given the same advice that please don't misbehave? Why is it the prerogative of girls to keep themselves safe? So these are some of the key issues we've talked about in many discussions also. So Namita, I'll start with you. You know, should there be different advice for boys and girls?
Absolutely not.
One second. Please be silent, otherwise go out. No issues.
Yeah, come on. Women need silence to be heard.
Yeah, please hear the women, otherwise why are you here?
See, as the mother of 2 daughters, and in fact in my immediate family for 5 generations, there has been no boy. So I don't know what it's like to bring up a boy, but I do know through my work in gender that you need to start talking to the boys. Because when you say 1 in 3 women is subjected to violence, then the logical question to ask is who is committing that violence? That violence is being committed by men who were boys, who are being brought up. So if you recall, the Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, in his very first address from Lal Killa, said, stop controlling your girls and tell your boys how to behave. I wish he would have repeated this message because it's a message we need to hear. We have to stop controlling our girls. We have to stop telling them, adjust kar lo, chup raho, zor se mat bolo. Unless your audience is shouting, then you have to zor se bolo. What do you do? we need just alongside, while we're doing all this, we need to be addressing the boys as well. But what are the boys seeing? The boys are seeing their fathers being rude to their mothers, abusive to their mothers, and they're picking up that message. If you don't address the boys, you are lost yet another generation. I don't think we have generations left to lose.
That is very well said, you know, because also boys and girls learn at the behavior जो घर पे होता है. And Radhi, you run a very good program also, Vedika School for Girls, where you teach girls that it's not enough just to, be the change and join the workforce, but you have a lovely hashtag don't quit. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for being here. Thank you for having me here. I think it is a topic very close to my heart because we do focus a lot on the women. And at least at Vedika, which is focused on, helping women sort of navigate the workplace, home, society, I always feel like things will get better when they're better for both. It's not going to work if it is at the cost of somebody else. So, Namita spoke about like boys being brought up better and to control the boys, not just the girls. I feel like the reverse is equally true. We are encouraging and giving permission to our girls to dream, to aspire, to go out, to ask for stuff. I think we have to give exactly the same kind of encouragement and permission to our boys to feel, to express, to be gentle, to nurture, like all of those things. And very quickly, 2 or 3 things that, everybody, I'm sure, in this room has seen that TV show called Adolescence. It was so hard-hitting in terms of what young boys go through, which we have very little idea about. And the last piece is something underlying what women face in the world is carrying the entire responsibility for caregiving. The scaffolding in society is provided by women who take care of that role. I think the gender agnosticity of caregiving has to start very early on. I think that's the next thing that needs to come into textbooks. So I would sort of stop there.
Yeah, why should the girl, as you yourself told me in one program, why should when there is a situation at home when a parent is not well, why is the natural कि girl अपना job quit करेगी? Why not the men? That is an issue we should discuss. So Leher, you have one boy, one girl?
I have a son and a daughter. I have to say that I'm very sympathetic to young men and boys because I think they get a very difficult mixed messaging from everyone around them, you know. And no matter how wealthy and prosperous Indians get, they have different expectations of their sons from their daughters, you know. So these boys are caught up in these, you know, provider roles. And I think girls don't help them and the women don't help them, you know, because it's something I find very strange that I find girls with great educations, all the advantages wealth can bring you, and yet they're very happy to take a secondary role when it comes to providing for the household. Right. So, you know, so boys are just caught up being the man, girls are willing to let them. So I think women also need to sort of
assert themselves.
And sort of take on roles of providing and not leave it only to the men, you know. And also because boys are getting this mixed messaging from society and from their families, they're completely at a loss on how to deal with women. So when the women end up doing much better than them, which apparently happens routinely, they don't know. They
Look
can't
at every year CBSE results.
You know, and one more thing that's very interesting, if you look at adoption statistics in India, the wealthy adopt girls, they don't adopt boys.
But also because it's only girls who are available in orphanages.
No, there are enough boys available. The wealthier you are, you adopt a girl. The lower income people tend to prefer boys. So that's something to think about.
But explain that logic.
I think, you know, even in India, believe it or not, statistics are changing and the girl child is not as badly off as she was 20 years ago.
I think people are also realizing that it is the girl child that they can depend on more. You know, which is also interesting because we were doing a conversation with young girls and one of them said, in fact, Radhi, I think she's from your institute. She said that I want to look after not just my in-laws, but my mother also. So, you know, girls are now becoming more assertive and often they are the ones who will come and look after you rather than the sons or the sons' wives.
Yeah. No, I just want to sort of, it's interesting that you're, no, I'm saying that it's interesting what you pointed out. I also feel, Priya, that it's the very early stages of almost like a reverse snobbery. And I hear this many times in, you know, households where some woman will very proudly say that, you know, my husband really wants a daughter. Now, I think it's about demonstrating that you're progressive or that you are forward-thinking. To me, the real equality in society will be when you have a child, doesn't matter whether it's a boy or girl. Yeah. But I think from wanting sons to actually wanting a daughter is as skewed as the, yeah. So.
Which is why also it helps when we have all the celebs adopting daughters because, you know, you have to also show by example, which is they celebrate their daughters also, which is, you know, a good trend. But Namita, somebody here mentioned Adolescent. Have I got the name of the movie right? Series right? Yes. Adolescent. You know, that story of that is how there are outside influences also. There are a lot of things that trigger young minds. So let's make this a gender neutral comment really. But, you know, what do we worry about for our kids today, in today's age?
No, I don't think some of the influences that young men are being exposed to are gender neutral. As Leher pointed out, there's a lot of really toxic, hyper-masculine, you know, the Andrew Tates of the world. Yes. And you think your child is safe in their room on the laptop and they're actually listening to this garbage that is completely skewing the way they look at women and the way they look at the world. And it's, earlier it was even, which is not concerned with this, but even ISIS and terror, there were a lot of these propaganda videos that were being directed at young men. And so I don't think you can take a gender neutral stand. I think you need to, yes, we want a gender neutral world, but when we're looking at the vulnerabilities of each, women have their own vulnerabilities of safety, of sexual violence, but boys also have their vulnerabilities. And I think it's important to recognize that.
But Leher, you spoke about the vulnerability of boys.
Actually, have you ever watched Andrew Tate? He makes a lot of sense.
Who?
Yeah, he does. What does he say?
The who was actually a who.
He says that 90% of the girls go for the top 10% of men. It's evolution. Everything men do is to impress women. And when you don't acknowledge this, that's where the problem is. So what are the rest of the 90% of men to do? Correct. The top jobs go to the 10% of them, right? Then there are not enough jobs. So you have a whole bunch of people who are completely lost with nothing to do. India being a prime example, if you look at joblessness here.
Correct.
So, these are systemic problems that need to be addressed at a different level,
So
women are grabbing all the jobs. They seem to be progressing in ways that boys are not.
But can I just, I think there's lots of things happening here. But I do want to go back to almost 10 years ago when Donald Trump was getting elected in the US for the first time.
How can we not mention Donald Trump when we're talking about bad boys?
But there was a very interesting historian at Yale who was predicting the elections. And once the results came out, he's somebody who has studied history, but he uses patterns to talk about the future. And I asked him, based on patterns, what are the 3 things that are going to shape the world going forward? Priya, he said, without blinking his eyes, the first thing he said was toxic masculinity was his first issue as something that is shaping the world today. And he came to climate and globalization as a far second and then a third. And what he said was that if you look at what's going on in the US and several other economies, he put the root at what both Namita and Leher spoke about, which is that men are brought up from day one believing that they have to be the providers. When you take away their ability to provide, you actually take away their reason to exist. And he said that that's what had happened to middle white American men, and that's why they would never forgive the Democrats. So whether it is responses to immigration, whether it is responses to, the importance or the criticality of this gendered way of bringing up boys and girls with such a skew in terms of what is expected of them is actually causing some very serious responses at a national, economic, social, all of these levels. So his point was, till such time that we democratize providing, which means women take up a lot of the load of providing and men can ease up on the providing, we are going to see such sort of very violent reactions to that loss.
I just wanted to add, women would love to take up that load.
Yeah.
It's not that women don't want to work, and you've done a lot of work on the care economy and on workforce participation. And one of the reasons why workforce participation by women has been falling is because of the very fact that when the economy does better, when household incomes go up, the women drop out because what they're working, we have statistics, time use survey, 6 hours a day for women and 25 minutes or something like that for men. It's when the economy then begins to flounder, which is what has happened post-COVID, that you suddenly have the workforce participation of women going up. Why? Not because they're in great jobs. It's because, they're in chicken farming, they're making papad, they're doing anything, even to get that extra 100 rupees a day because the poverty is so dire, the unemployment is so dire. Women want respectable jobs. I think there's no, look at the girls who come to Vedika. They're aspirational, they're dreaming. This morning, there was this wonderful session of drone didis. These are girls who want to do modern stuff and they dream. But we don't let them because we trap them. You know, nahi, shadi, first priority of every girl, shadi karo. Second priority, bacche paida karo. Third priority, ek ladka to hona hi chahiye, even if it's ek ladki. You know, don't talk about this room. Talk about India. Talk about the majority of people. We are stuck in that. We're not able to get out of that narrative. And unless we change these priorities for our daughters of shadi and bachcha, nothing will change.
No, I
But,
think, sorry.
yeah, sorry. No, I just wanted to bring Leher in also. You know, I'm sure the pressure, the girls at least have a choice. Some of the girls have a choice. Boys don't have a choice. They have to be the bread earner. There is no choice, right?
That's why I think, you know, this whole, I don't know how to change all this for boys. I think it's really hard on them because, and if you notice that, you know, boys all over the world, they're choosing to get married later. There's so much job instability. What is it that women can do to help men along? Is that a question worth answering? Mothers, sisters, grandmothers? I think fundamentally the way Indians bring up their boys, of course, there's a huge problem there, you know, because the Raja Beta syndrome is rules, you know.
Correct.
So, and you know, the worst thing for a boy is that if you're treated in your home like a star, and you go out and you're out in the world and then you discover you're not a star at all, that's a very shattering blow to your self-esteem, you know. And that's something they're not prepared for. So I find that boys are more fragile than girls these days. I have both, and I just find that I would worry more about my son than I would about my daughter, you know. And I hear this from a lot of parents of boys.
Yeah, no, that's what he said. Fragile
Radhi,
masculinity
the mic.
is like
Yeah.
Anuradha, Mike.
Oh, sorry. No, I'm saying that you're absolutely right, that the term that the gentleman used was fragile masculinity. It is very fragile. It is very fragile.
See, I think it begins right at the beginning, you know. I feel that parents, they don't cuddle boys as much as they cuddle girls. They don't, you know, boys are not allowed to express their emotions when they're in school and college. In fact, they did a study in these Netherlands schools that kindergarten teachers spent far less time comforting a little boy child who fell over a girl child, after which they started they removed he and she from the vocabulary at the kindergarten level. So, you know, maybe sometime if we could use some radical methods like that to make it equal from 3 onwards, it would be a different scenario. And it's not that difficult, you know, to make these changes, at least in the areas which we operate in.
Which is the home. Namita, you wanted to come in?
Yeah, I agree. It's tough to be a boy, but it's tougher to be a girl. And it's not a competition, but you look at the lives of girls. I'm talking of average Indian girl. I'm not talking about elite girl who's going to convent school and, you know, is her daddy's princess. I'm not talking about that girl at all. I'm talking about the girl in the jhuggi who is not allowed to have, forget about boyfriends, she's not even allowed girlfriends because the mother will say, ye bahut tez hai, ye bigad jayegi. She does not have a mobile phone. She does not have mobility. She's, you know, and it is such a, if the mother falls ill, it is the eldest daughter who will be yanked out of school and made to do the housework. If the mother has another child and there's no one to look after that child, the elder daughter takes over that job. You know, the son is okay. He may not even be in school. He may be just loafing in the gully. He will not pick up his thali and put it in the, his sister will be washing his thali and picking it up for him too. That is the life of girls. So let us first, I'm not saying don't talk to you. I think we're talking about 2 different segments of society. And I think both need equal and urgent attention. And definitely I agree, whichever segment you're talking to, unless you begin to change the way boys are brought up, it's not just, you can't just change the way girls are brought up. You have to also change the way boys are brought up. This story will never change. He will remain Raja Beta. 100 years from now, we'll still be bemoaning Raja Betas.
On that note, I think thank you all for this conversation. It is, the note is really right. It's not just the change, it's not just the girls. The mindset of the boys also has to change. The mindset has to change not just in the workplace, in the school, but also at home. And we have to set the example because it is what they see at home is what they will do later on in their own homes. But thank you for this conversation and thank you all.
Well, thank you so much to everyone for joining us at the We Women Want